In this video, I will show you how to evaluate these double angle trig functions given one trig value and basically the quadrant. First of all, this part over here is really telling us the quadrant. Between 3 pi over 2 and 2 pi, that is the fourth quadrant. So keep that in mind. We're talking about quadrant 4. So when you draw your picture, you need to draw your picture into the fourth quadrant, like this. Alright, so draw yourself a fourth quadrant picture. So here's the terminal side in the fourth quadrant, and I'll make a triangle out of it. Okay, now cosine, in terms of x, y, and r, cosine is x over r. Okay, so this tells me that x is 4. So I'm going to put a 4 right here. And r, the radius, is 5. Alright, I need to know what y is. And this is one of the triples that most of us have memorized. A 3, 4, 5 triangle is the most common right triangle that you will see. So this has a length of 3, but specifically let's go ahead and call it a y value of -3 because it is down. So now we have x, y, and r. Now keep in mind that the angle in question is really this angle that starts from the positive x-axis and goes all the way around. So that is what theta looks like. Alright, but we have x, y, and r. So with that in mind, we should be able to do tangent of 2 theta. Alright, so this is the formula for tangent of 2a. It's 2 tangent a over 1 minus tangent squared a. So applying that to theta, so the formula says that I should have 2 tangent theta over 1 minus tangent squared theta. So the question is, what is tangent theta? Well, tangent is y over x. So tangent is going to be -3 over 4. So this is going to be 2 times -3 over 4 over 1 minus -3 over 4 squared. So it's just a matter of simplifying this down. Okay, so this is going to be in the numerator here, remembering this is 2 over 1. So I'm going to have -6 over 4 in the numerator. Now in the denominator, when I square this, I'm going to get 9 over 16. Alright, so that's what I'm subtracting. Now 1, I'm going to use the magic of 1 and write that as 16 over 16, so I will have like denominators. Alright, let me make a new column. So I'm going to have -6 over 4 over 16 minus 9, that's 7, so I'm going to have 7 over 16. So now I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal. So I'm going to have -6 over 4 times 16 over 7. 4 goes into 16 4 times. So this is going to make -24 over 7. So that will be the answer for number 5. For number 6, well, once again we are between 3 pi over 2 and 2 pi. So that means once again we are talking about the fourth quadrant. So let's get that going. Our little picture, my friend. Okay, fourth quadrant. Now, sine is y over r. The radius cannot be negative. It's always positive. So that means this negative sign is really on the 8. So y is negative 8. And the radius is 17. So I need to know the x. So I'm going to do a quick Pythagorean theorem. So I can almost remember what this other one is, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. So it's going to be x squared plus y squared is equal to the radius squared. So that's going to be x squared plus 64 is equal to 289. So subtracting 64 from both sides, I get 225. Taking the square root, x is plus or minus 15. Okay, which is what I thought. I knew that was 15. Anyway, in this quadrant, the x value is positive, so I'm going to go ahead and put a positive 15. Now, the cosine of 2 theta, there are two formulas. There are 3 formulas for the cosine of 2 theta. Boom, boom, and boom. For right now, I'm just going to use the first one. Cosine squared minus sine squared. Okay, so this is going to be cosine squared theta minus sine squared theta. Cosine is x over r. So that's going to be 15 over 17. So I'm going to have 15 over 17 squared. Now sine is y over r. So that's going to be negative 8 over 17 squared. So this is going to be 225 over 289 minus 64 over 289. So that is 161 over 289. And that's the final answer. Alright, this time we are between 0 and pi over 2. So that simply puts us in the first quadrant. Tangent. Tangent is y over x. So that means y is 3 and x is 4. 3, 4, 5 triangle, we've memorized that, so r is 5. So there's x, y, and r. So the cosine formula. Once again, the cosine of 2 theta is going to be cosine squared theta minus sine squared theta. There's 2 other options, but this is my go-to. So I'm going to do cosine squared theta minus sine squared theta. Okay, so cosine is x over r. That's 4 over 5. And sine is y over r. So that's 3 over 5. So that's going to be 16 over 25 minus 9 over 25, which is 7 over 25. So that's it for number 7. Number 8, we are between pi over 2 and pi. That puts us in the second quadrant. So let's do our little sketch in the second quadrant, shall we? What kind of accent was that? Whatever it was, don't do it again. Tangent is y over x. Now, where does the negative go? Let's see. In this quadrant, y is positive and x is negative. So this is really a negative 12 and a positive 5. Okay, so positive 5, negative 12. 5, 12, 13. I've memorized that one. So this is going to be 13 for the radius. The radius is always positive. So the sine formula goes 2 times sine cosine. So I'm going to do 2 sine theta cosine theta, just using the formula. So this is going to be 2 times, alright, sine is y over r, so that's going to be 5 over 13. And cosine is x over r, so that's negative 12 over 13. And this is like 2 over 1. Okay, so that's 10. So that's going to be negative 120. Okay, over 169. So that should be the final answer. Alright, with number 9 we're shifting gears slightly. Instead of just having a double angle like 2 times u, we have angle u plus angle v. So we're going to be using these formulas instead. Okay, and because we have 2 different angles, we have to draw 2 different little tiny pictures. So this first angle u is between pi over 2 and pi, so that's going to be in the second quadrant. So let's draw that little picture real quick. Maybe I'll put it over here. So here we go, second quadrant. Alright, little schematic. Okay, tangent is y over x. So this is going to be 5 over negative 12. Alright, and I should be very careful to label this as angle u to make sure I don't forget. Oh yeah, I guess I need the radius. So this is 5, 12, 13. So the radius is 13. We've memorized that. If we ever hit one that we don't memorize, we just use the Pythagorean theorem. Okay, now let's do the little triangle, the little diagram for the other angle. Angle V is between 0 and pi over 2, so that puts it in the first quadrant. So we'll just do our tiny little sketch in the first quadrant, like so. Okay, sine is y over r. So this is going to be 5, and this is going to be 13. 5, 12, 13, so x is going to be 12. And this is angle V, ladies and gentlemen. So label it, keep it straight. That's angle V. Okay, so now, if I want to do the cosine of a sum, I'm doing this formula. So the cosine formula goes cosine cosine minus sine sine. Okay, so that means I'm going to do cosine of u cosine of v minus sine u sine v. Okay, now cosine of u, that is x over r, so that's going to be negative 12 over 13. The cosine of v, x over r, that's positive 12 over 13. Sine of u, that's y over r, 5 over 13. Sine of v, also 5 over 13. Okay, so this is going to give me negative 144 over 169 minus 25 over 169. So that gives us negative 169 over 169, which equals negative 1. So that is going to be the final answer for number 9. Problem number 10. U is between pi and pi over 2. So that's going to be in the second quadrant. So let's do a little sketch into the second quadrant. Alright, there's the terminal side. Cosine is x over r. So that means this will be negative 7 and this will be 25. So we'll just do the Pythagorean theorem to find the y value. That turns out to be 24. Okay, so we have x, y, and r over there. Let's label this clearly to show that this is angle U. Alright, do not forget that. So now let's draw a sketch of angle V. Angle V is between 3 pi over 2 and 2 pi. So that puts it in the fourth quadrant. So we'll do our little sketch in the fourth quadrant then. Alright, sine is y over r. So that means we're looking at negative 3 and r is 5. And this is the Pythagorean triple 3, 4, 5. So I know that x will be 4, positive 4 in this quadrant. Okay, let's label that angle because this is angle V and we do not want to get confused. So this is a picture of angle V. Okay, so cosine, the cosine formula goes cosine cosine plus, got to change it up, sine sine. So cosine cosine plus sine sine. So I'm just going to write that down. So that's going to go cosine U cosine V plus sine U sine V. Okay, so let's see. Cosine of U, that's x over r, so that's negative 7 over 25. And then cosine of V, that's 4 over 5. Plus sine U, that's y over r, so that's 24 over 25. And sine V, y over r, that's negative 3 over 5. So it's just a matter of simplifying this. So this is going to be negative 28 over, what's this, like 125? Okay, and this is going to be negative. So what's this? Like 72? So I've got negative 100 over 125. Both of these are divisible by 25. So that's going to give me negative 4 over 5. So that should be the final answer. Okay, angle U is between 0 and pi over 2. So that is the first quadrant. So we'll just draw a quick sketch of that. Tangent is y over x. So that's going to be 12 over 5. 5, 12, 13. All right, I've memorized that one. So that is a sketch of angle U. All right, now angle V is between pi over 2 and pi. That is in the second quadrant. So let's do a sketch of that. Cosine is x over r. So this is, let's see. So x is negative 24 and r is 25. Okay, which makes y 7, positive 7. So just do the Pythagorean theorem if you have not memorized that one. But the y has to be positive because of the quadrant that we're in. So that is going to be angle V. All right, label it clearly. The sine sum formula goes sine cosine plus cosine sine. So let's write that down. So this should be sine U cosine V plus cosine U sine V. Sine of U, that's y over r, so that's 12 over 13. Cosine of V, that's x over r, so that's negative 24 over 25. Cosine of U, that's 5 over 13. And sine of V, that's 7 over 25. Okay, so that makes negative 288 over 325 plus 35 over 325. So that's negative 253 over 325, and that's going to be the final answer. For problem number 12, angle U is between 3 pi over 2 and 2 pi. So that is in the fourth quadrant. Cosine is x over r, so that means that this is 7 and this is 25. A little Pythagorean theorem gives us a 24, but this is going to be negative 24 because of the quadrant. So let's clearly label that as angle U. Okay, this is angle U. Meanwhile, angle V is between pi and 3 pi over 2. So that is the third quadrant. Okay, tangent. Tangent is y over x. So that means that this is 15. Well, negative 15 because of the quadrant. And this is going to be negative 8. Okay, that's our y and our x. Okay, now we just need to find the hypotenuse, which I believe is 17. So that's the r value. So this is angle V. Let's label it very clearly. Angle V. Okay, so we're supposed to do sine of U minus V. The sign of a difference goes sine cosine minus cosine sine. So it'll be sine u cosine v minus cosine u sine v. Sine of u, that's y over r, so that's going to be negative 24 over 25. Cosine of v, that's x over r, so that's negative 8 over 17. Cosine of u, x over r, so that's 7 over 25. Sine of v, that's y over r, so negative 15 over 17. So I'm getting positive 192 over 425 minus negative 105 over 425. Now, when you subtract a negative, you wind up adding. So this is going to wind up being, so we get 297 over 425, and that is the final answer. Alright guys, that's going to do it for this video. Go ahead and click here in the red apple to watch the next video. Click in the green apple to subscribe, or click the yellow apple for the full playlist.